Hi, folks. This is Mark Smith with Family Tree Life Coaches, and it's Genogram night again. We have a live volunteer. You won't see her. I see her. Her name is Sharon, and what we're going to do is just dig right into her family tree. And we'll just let people show up as they show up. Say hi when you sign in. And I've noticed that ever since we've been doing the genograms, gathering the information is sort of tedious. It usually takes about an hour, and I don't know if it's scintillating television. Sharon also is checking in and saying hi. So Sharon says hi to Sharon. But what we're trying to show is the power of the genogram and the power of studying 4 generations of people and being able to understand the patterns that you see in that and communicate that. And that's really powerful stuff. So I don't care if it's not scintillating entertainment. If you stay for the whole thing, which will be, hey, Annie, I got your email. You're up, not in 2 weeks, but 2 weeks after that. But thank you for sending me the email. You're on deck. We have a guy from Lithuania in 2 weeks. So hang in. Also, please participate by asking Sharon questions. If something perks in your mind, then jump in and ask a question, and that's cool. I'm supposed to have my camera higher. It gives me a better angle, makes me look less bad. So let me adjust the camera. There we go. I don't know if that works or not. Okay, so Sharon, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Hello, everybody.
So what possessed you to sign? Hey, David, welcome. What possessed you to sign up for Family Tree Night with Mark Smith?
Well, I think it's just a way of getting my voice, of being heard, another step in my growth. And I've really enjoyed listening to you do the other one.
Okay. Tell me about wanting to get a voice.
I grew up as a codependent and was very codependent in a narcissistic abusive marriage for 31 years. I've been out for 10 years, and so I've been working on getting my voice.
Okay. So could you get a little closer to your phone's microphone? Just so they can hear you really, really, really good. Okay. So Sharon, how old are you?
I'm 65.
65. 60 a long time ago seemed really old, but I'm 61, and somehow 60 just doesn't really seem all that old anymore. It seems really young. So
yeah.
Okay.
Non-Medicare is not fun.
Yeah. So are you married? What's your situation?
I'm divorced.
Divorced. How long have you been divorced?
10 years.
Divorced for 10 years. Okay. So you told me earlier that you grew up in Grand Rapids.
No, I live in Grand Rapids.
You live in Grand Rapids. Where'd you grow up? In Ann Arbor.
In Ann Arbor, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Are your parents still with us?
Dad's deceased. He died at 89 of dementia and a stroke. And my mom is still alive. She's 90.
God bless her.
Driving, good health.
What'd you say?
She's 90, good health, driving still.
She still drives?
Oh, yep. She'd be out playing bingo if the halls weren't closed.
Cool. Sunny Day Ahead says 60 is the new 49.
Okay.
Then I'm 50 then. So, what's your mom's first name?
Jean.
And what was your father's first name?
William.
Did he go by William or what did he go by?
He went by Bill.
Bill. Okay. So, tell me about your father as you were growing up. What was he like?
I think he was somebody I was afraid of. You know, he would go after it and hit us. My brother would get the belt. We never really knew why. Everything was very rigid. You had to do everything the way he wanted. You had to be his faith. You know, there were just no exceptions to the rules. You didn't have a voice. But then there were times he was playful and would take you ice skating or sledding or take you to Detroit to a market or something.
So most of the time he was pretty scary, but every once in a while he was playful and took you to cool places.
Yes.
Okay. Susan Lander says, hello, Mark. I'm new here. Welcome. You say thankful that you found us. We're also thankful that you found us. What kind of work did your dad do, Sharon?
He managed a small grocery store, corner grocery store.
All those years?
All those years.
How many years?
Oh man, long before I was born. So he was taken out of the war to come home. His dad had back issues to run the store. So that probably would have been.
Oh, it was a family business?
Yeah, yeah.
His dad's store.
Anybody's ever been to Zingerman's Deli in Ann Arbor, that's the place.
Singerman's.
Yeah, now it's Zingerman's, which is a famous deli.
It was Singerman's and now it's Zingerman's?
No, it was Dyroff's Market when he was there, but now
okay.
it's called Zingerman's with a Z, like zebra.
Okay. So, how many years did your dad manage the family grocery store?
Maybe 35, 40 years.
Wow.
And in his retirement, when he left there, you know, when it wasn't making much money, he worked at the university in pest control.
Okay. Okay.
He took a medical retirement.
Okay. Did your dad work a lot of hours?
Oh yeah, the business was open 6 days a week, and then the seventh day you were doing paperwork. He was mowing the lawn, you know. So he had two residents to keep up, and the upstairs was a home where he grew up, and eventually he was renting that out to medical students when his parents no longer lived there.
So he had some sort of maintenance. Hi, Judy Garner. Welcome. So he had some maintenance of the apartment upstairs to deal with too.
Yeah. And
okay.
So, you know, he might watch a little football on the weekend, but he would get home at 8:30, 9 o'clock every night. So long days.
Okay. What ethnic background on your dad's side? This feels a little ethnic with the grocery. German.
German Catholic.
German Catholic. You guys have probably heard me say this before during the shows, but the reason that there are ethnic stereotypes is because they're generally true. I've never done a family tree on somebody who was German who wasn't a workaholic. Germans are workers. Work. That's what they do. They're not long on love, but they can work you under the table. That's those German folks. Yeah. Of course, the Irish stereotype is they have bad tempers and they drink. I found that to be very true. So there's truth to stereotypes. Okay.
He did not drink. His brother was an alcoholic and he chose not to drink.
Younger brother, older brother?
Older.
Okay. So it was just the two, your dad and his brother?
He had two more siblings. He had another brother and a sister.
Okay. But the older brother was alcoholic.
Right.
And your dad didn't drink. Okay. So your brother got the belt, but you didn't get the belt.
And we got hit. I mean, like one time we tried to put encyclopedias down our trousers, and
he did what?
So we did get hit, as hard. We put encyclopedias down our trousers, but we got it even worse. So I don't really know what we did wrong. I think back then, you never said any, you never backtalked, you never had an opinion, nothing. You just did everything their way. And
the old encyclopedia down the trousers trick.
Yep.
The thing about encyclopedias back then is they were pretty thick. You probably couldn't get away with the bulge in the buttocks area without being found out.
And we were kind of hiding under the, cutout of a desk too. But of course we got found out.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me about your mother as you were growing up.
When I was about 3 months old, apparently she had some psychiatric care, and I think it probably was for postpartum depression. But that was told to me when I was, I'm like 20 years old, and she was very upset to find out that I knew, because it's a very shameful thing in that generation. But I always sensed that there was some depression and felt like I was responsible for, being good so that she wouldn't be sad or something. She worked part-time in a patient accounts department at the University Hospital. She was a kind person, a good heart, read to us and took us to the beach and that kind of thing. A lot of good memories, but again, very codependent and very rigid as far as what we could do and not do. And
so she was rigid as well.
Yeah, when you come from that background.
Was she Irish
Catholic.
She was Irish.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, people out there, feel free to ask Sharon questions as we go along, or make comments, or whatever you want to do. Just say something. So when you say your mother had psychiatric care, was it just a little bit of medication, or did she actually?
I think she went to a facility for a while and had some of the shock treatments.
Oh.
But that's all I could find out. The family there was very close-lipped. But being it was, I was 3 months old, that's what made me think it was perhaps postpartum depression of some sort.
Sunny Day wants to know did you guys go to church as a family?
Yes, we had to go to church. And for most of the time, we would work in the store and clean up. Saturday night was a big cleanup night, and we would go Saturday night. I always thought it was strange that my dad fell asleep, but
he would fall asleep in church?
Yeah, because he was so tired.
He was tired.
Even as a 24-year-old, before I got married, I had to go to church. I had to go to the Catholic Church.
Okay. What kind of impact do you think your experience in the Catholic Church had for you as you were growing up?
Well, I went to Catholic school for 10 years as well. There were some good things I learned, but it really turned me away from Catholicism. I think I came back around about 20 years ago and got more involved in non-denominational church. And I learned so much and found that so much of what I was taught in the Catholic Church was man-made rules, and I was shamed for those things. So, and I've also found that the Catholic Church hasn't been helpful to me when I've been in need, during the marriage issues or whatever. So,
Okay. Somebody named Not Now says, this is so cool. Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing.
You're welcome.
And then Annie says, Sharon, same thing with Catholicism shoved down her throat. She asked, did you marry in the Catholic Church as well?
Yes. Yeah, I had to laugh because the night before he wanted me to go to confession. I'm like, no.
What?
No.
Who wanted you to go to confession the night before?
This was mainly to please his mom and dad, I think.
Okay. All right.
But,
seems like a strange thing to go to confession. The
Catholic Church makes you go through a couple-day pre-Cana thing, and they released us, said, he makes good money, you're good to go. And then, 41 years later, when he's trying to get an annulment, they come back and try and say, you were immature and you guys weren't ready. And I'm like, well, you passed us back then. You weren't there to help us. Like, sure.
What do you know about your mother's childhood and her people?
Oh, she went out to visit her grandma on a farm. I know she enjoyed that. She was the oldest. Now she's outlived her siblings. They didn't show feelings much. Even like when her brother was dying, she didn't want to show any tears or anything like that. There were a few family secrets, which most of them I never found out.
How do you know there's family secrets?
Well, there were some meetings, and we were told to go in our rooms, kind of thing. And she was codependent with her dad. He was a mechanic, well-known mechanic, and I remember her kind of sputtering under her breath. I wish he would let me make an appointment with him, not just call and say, I have an opening, come on down with a car, because she was working and kids' schedules and stuff. So, there weren't boundaries. She couldn't speak up and say, hey, Dad, I need an appointment. So, of course, I didn't learn about feelings. I didn't learn about boundaries or anything like that.
Welcome, Steve. He says, congratulations on getting free of the church.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So her father was a mechanic. I mentioned the stereotype of Irish folk. Were there any tempers, any red hair, or any rage, or any drinking in the family?
One of my kids has red hair, and the ex has red hair.
Okay.
My grandpa, he was kind of stern, maybe a bit judgmental and stuff, very hard worker. He only got to finish 8th grade. He had to put his brother through medical school and his sister through becoming a teacher. So he was always resentful. He didn't get
your grandfather had to put his brother through medical school?
Yeah. So his brother became a surgeon, and his sister was a teacher.
Your grandfather drew the short straw, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't know why they had him do that.
But. Annie wants to know if there was any river dance in there at the Irish family.
Not that I know of. My mom likes to dance, but not river dance.
Not the river dance.
Swear dance.
Yeah. So, what was your grandmother like?
She was kind of quiet and passive, but also loving it. She would take us to movies, like Sound of Music, Mary Poppins and stuff, take us shopping. And both the grandparents, Grandpa and Grandma, stopped everything when we came over. They were so glad to see you. But she did push a little food down me. Have another helping, have another helping, and
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
that's a bad thing. I
Okay.
ended up with a lot of food issues as time went on.
Okay. So those.
But I got that from my dad and mom too. I mean, you were having liver and onions, and you had to have it. Not, I don't like it.
Okay. Okay. So they
So
sort of.
I never learned when I was full or not.
You didn't have a voice when it came to eating or how full you were. They were really literally shoving the food on you.
Right. The only time I really had a voice was when I was leaving 10th grade and their money was running low, and they said, do you want to continue to finish Catholic school, or do you want to go to a public school and then we'll pay for your college? And I said, well, I want you to pay for my college. I'll go to the public school. And I became a nurse.
Oh, you became a nurse.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Sunny Day says, were there any bold women who spoke their mind in your family?
Not in those generations. In my generation, I'm seeing it maybe in the last 15 years.
So in your generation, like who are you talking about now?
Oh, like my cousins and that, who were going to be your age, maybe a little bit younger. And I see some strong women who put up with a lot of stuff and spoke up. And
okay. Annie said, did the food issues come in the form of either anorexia or bulimia?
no, it was more overeating, being overweight. I had bariatric surgery 3 years ago. I think it was also a way to cope with all the stress and feelings I didn't even know I had till I was 42 years old.
Yeah, yeah. I guess Sharon, you're like me. In my family, probably the biggest addiction was food.
Yeah.
Everybody in the family was a food addict. So
yeah.
Not so much because food was forced on us. It was more my mother only knew how to nurture with food.
And also with my dad having that little store, he had all those goodies there.
There's all kinds of unlimited goodies just down there.
Yeah, the what do you call them, Twinkies and Suzy Q's and all that stuff. So when the high school kids would come down at lunchtime to get treats, I didn't pay for mine. Of course, Dad paid for them later, but I felt special because I could just take things.
You could just go in and grab some Twinkies. Yeah. I liked ding dongs back in the day.
Yeah.
Very unnutritious Twinkies and ding dongs. Not a lot of nutrition going on there.
Yeah.
Okay. But no alcoholics on that side of the family.
On my mom's side, she had so it would be my grandpa's father was an alcoholic. So that might have been why he had to go to
put his brother through med school.
Yeah, that might have been. I don't know much about that other than I know his name and that he was an alcoholic.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't run across too many Irish families without some alcoholics. Annie likes the ho-hos too.
Oh, okay.
What were the ho-hos? Were that like the little roly things of chocolate?
Oh,
is that a ho-ho?
There was some snowball things too with coconuts.
I remember those. Yeah.
Memories of childhood.
Yeah. You know what I liked was when I went to Annie says, yes, cylinder shape. The Steve says moon pies. Boy, moon pies were good. What I liked, we're digressing here just for a moment. When you went to lunch and you had call them push-ups, like the orange sherbet that would come up in a push-up. Boy, those were good.
They still make those.
They still make those, yeah. Like you go and find them in a convenience store. Yeah. Jump in if you have any favorite junk food from, like decades ago. Feel free while we're digressing. Okay, so let's talk about your marriage. What is his first name? Feel free to change the name to
I'm going to use initials, WGK.
WGA.
No, K.
K. I thought you said K. Kangaroo. Okay. How old is, I'm going to just call him WG. How old is?
He is 73.
Okay. So Susan says 0 candy bars. Oh my God. Do I love 0 candy bars. I think my favorite is Snickers with almonds, but 0 is right there. And you could just walk in the grocery store and just grab a 0 candy bar and a pop. That was cool. That was cool. Okay, so how many years were you married to WG?
I just want to mention one thing about my dad. I think he had OCD.
Okay, tell us about that.
Because he would make us check the door 4 times.
4 times.
And when we would leave to make sure it was locked. He was always checking receipts to make sure you got everything from the grocery store, that you weren't overcharged. He was very suspicious of people. In the house, it was always shut those windows before you go, make sure all the burners are turned off. One time, the front screen door was locked. My mom had a meringue pie in the oven, and so that's how I learned how to take a door off. The neighbor showed us. Even still, at this stage of my life, if I go visit them and my car's in the driveway and I forget a purse or something and go out there, I'll come back in and the door's locked already.
The door's already locked.
I did grow up with a serial killer on the loose too, so that might have played a little part. John
Sharon?
Norman Collins was the
who?
John Norman Collins was the serial killer on the loose when I was in high school.
Okay, so now the family tree is getting a little bit interesting here.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. Not Now loves the push-ups and the juicy fruit gum with the zebra. I know about the zebra. I know about juicy fruit gum. Okay, tell me, this is fascinating, about the serial killer on the loose. What was his name? John what?
John Norman Collins.
Seems like serial killers a lot of times have 3 names. I don't know what's up with that.
The very last girl that he killed, they were all co-eds. And the last girl he killed was from Grand Rapids. Some of these girls, went to U of M, some went to Eastern, whatever. It was just, because of that was in the news all the time, like my parents wouldn't let me walk home from school in the woods like most kids did. That was quick, but no, you have to go inside.
I can sort of see that if there's a serial killer. How long did this guy roam the public and kill people?
I don't know. I imagine it was at least 5 years. I'd have to look up for sure. Also, the riots were going on in Detroit when I was a young girl. And so my parents' fear was they would come to us, which would have been, 45 minutes or so to the west. So lots of things to be afraid of, but a lot more than I can handle.
Yeah. Sunny Day says, whatchamacallit candy bar? You ever hear of a whatchamacallit?
Yeah.
Never heard of and I've heard of Hubba Bubba bubble gum. That's even fun to say. Hubba Bubba bubble gum. Okay. So they finally caught the serial killer. How did they catch him?
Oh, let's see. I'm actually looking on Google. It's from 1967 to 1969. So his span was a couple of years, almost a day. How many did he kill? he was convicted of one, and then there were 6 alleged ones.
So 7.
7? 7, okay, yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
now he's 73 from Canada.
Still in prison.
Yep.
The serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've done a lot of family trees in my day, and honestly, Sharon, this might be the first one that was infected with the presence of a serial killer. That's what I love about doing these family trees is there's always something new. This morning I worked with a couple, and in 34 years, I don't get too many people who come in, and as they were both sort of doing the introductory, this is what the issues are, they just both wept. They didn't just cry, they wept. And I can count on like one hand and have fingers left over how many times that has happened. So that was really moving. And again, that's what makes this family tree stuff interesting. And here we're all up in 0 candy bars and moon pies and serial killers. So,
well, I think with the killers going on too, it meant you didn't go out and do social things very much as a teenager because of this stuff.
in a weird way, it was sort of the COVID of the day, the thing that stopped social interaction.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, weird. Okay, so how many years were you married to WG? You might have told me.
31.
Married 31 years. How did the two of you meet?
We met on a ski slope in Kalamazoo. We were taking lessons, and he was making up a lesson that he'd missed, and he asked my girlfriend out, and she wouldn't go out with him. So I always said I was second best and won out, but that was long before I found out who he really was.
Yeah. So again, fresh information. I might have had in 34 years had somebody meet on a ski slope making up a lesson, but it seems like sort of a cool place to meet. You know, you're being recreational, you're having fun. So how many years did you date before you got married?
I think it was 4 years, but it was a long distance romance. He was either in Kalamazoo or Grand Rapids, and I was in Ann Arbor. You know, we'd go back and forth, but I wouldn't recommend that.
You wouldn't recommend a long, how about 10 hours? How's that? Yours was what, 3 or 4?
2 and a half.
2.5. That's not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you want to know his occupation?
Yes, ma'am.
Judge.
He's a judge? No way.
Yeah. He's still sitting for a few more months. This is one reason why I was kind of debating whether to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Interesting. How many years has he been a judge?
Let's see, he became a judge the year that we got married, so 41 years, and he has to retire at the end of the year. According to some court rules, you can't run again once you're 74.
Huh.
He says hi.
Interesting. Okay, so tell me about sort of the evolution of meeting him, dating for 4 years, getting married, and then what happened?
Well, early on in the relationship, I only had one boyfriend before him. That was about 3 months. So I didn't have much guidance regarding dating or anything. But anyway, you know, he kind of wined and dined you. But I found out about 3 or 4 months into it that he was sleeping with other women. But at that time,
3 or 4 months into dating or the marriage?
Dating. Oh, are we, and you want to do dating or marriage?
Dating is where we probably should
dating,
start.
okay.
He was sleeping with other women.
he was sleeping with other women, but he was never open about any of this stuff. It was, you get some disease or whatever. But back then, women were supposed to tolerate whatever men did. And I tried my darndest to tolerate for a lot of years the stuff that he did. And of course, felt like used goods.
How did you find out about these other women when you were dating?
Well, just, because you'd get disease or something. And so when I called him and was furious, he would go to the health department and get checked using a fake name. Well, I couldn't use a fake name because my mom worked in patient accounts. All her friends and were going to see what my stuff came through, Okay. And when I first met him, he told me that he was a janitor. So, there was lying right off the bat. And when you look
he
back,
was a lawyer, but he told you he was a janitor?
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
Well, I think he thought that women go after him for his money.
Okay.
And, I was kind of a poor family. That was not my thing. But
right.
Yeah.
You said a little bit ago, women were supposed to, I forget the word.
Yeah, women were supposed to tolerate whatever men did. And, I didn't even know that rape in marriage was rape in marriage until, I don't know, maybe 5-8 years so before we were divorced. But until 1973, it was legal in Michigan that men could do whatever they want to their wives when they were married. So, anyway.
Did that happen to you?
Yes. Yeah, there was an attempted rape and attempted murder.
Attempted murder?
Yeah. Yeah, he had his hands on my throat and such. When I confronted him about a girlfriend that he went to London with.
So there's somebody, a Danby says Moonchild. Isn't there a Cat Stevens song named Moonchild? I don't know what that has to do with what Annie says, that she's so sorry that you went through that, and that the monster should not be a judge.
No. And, when those two things happened, I chose not to put him in prison because, for one, who's going to believe me as opposed to him? But my kids were all in school and I didn't want them to go through the public thing with the dad on trial and all that. And also, he brought an income which I couldn't bring. And at that point, I'd already lost my career, but my kids had a lot of mental health issues and physical issues. I had to take care of all that. So I chose to keep a secret and take it on myself, which just kind of come back to bite me because of their loyalty to their dad. But whatever, you make those decisions at the time and do what you got to do.
So didn't you say on your mother's side there were like family secrets?
Yeah, about the one I don't know because it was some meeting, and then of course the mental health care she got when I was an infant was quite the secret.
Right. Okay.
I guess one thing about my grandma, her mom, was that her mom had a sister that died. She was hit by a train.
Oh no.
And then the ex-husband, he had a sibling who died when she was 4 years old, and was never grieved, and so look at that stuff.
So your grandmother's mother had a sister who was hit by a train.
No, my grandma herself.
Your grandmother yourself had a sister.
Had a sister.
Okay, I goofed that up.
Killed by a train.
Okay.
Those boots they used to wear with those little buttons got stuck.
Oh no, the boots got stuck in the railroad tracks? Oh my God, that's horrible. Part of what's hard about doing these family tree things is you really find out some really tragic things,
Mhm.
that happened. That's awful. More about the marriage.
Oh, he was a judge when we got married. We didn't have children for a couple of years. Then we had five.
Five
Um,
kids.
5, 8, and under. The last two were twins, identical twins. All girls except the second one is a boy. Lots of allergies and medical problems, but as it turned out, 4 of the 5 had bipolar. One has BPD as well.
Okay, let's hold on to the kids.
Okay.
Danjby says Moonchild is a personality type, plus the name of an alleged government program in the 1950s. Betty, welcome. Sharon wants to know, was there any domestic violence in your parents?
Absolutely.
In your parents' relationship?
And the parents, yeah, I'd say there's a lot of psychological damage or psychological abuse. We didn't see it, and I didn't see it as a kid, of course, until I didn't even know there was such a thing. But the yelling, demanding.
From your dad at your mother?
Yeah, and from my dad. And as time went on, my dad, he had, he yelled a lot, and my mom was embarrassed by his yelling, and some of the things he would say would be inappropriate. And one time when he was in the hospital for something, they wanted to do a psych eval, and he said, get out of here, I don't have any problem. A lot of dementia in his family. And even that the young form of dementia, when you die by the time you're 54, was one of his brothers.
Okay.
So that's kind of scary.
So, domestic violence in your marriage.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't figure that out until I was about 42 years old. Of course, there was the sexual abuse that I mentioned. Mostly it was psychological abuse, a little bit of physical abuse. The physical abuse was more like barricading you from going outside or whatever. Financial abuse, like keeping the credit cards from you, taking the checkbook away, diverting his paycheck to a different account, all that kind of stuff. His family was involved with a lot of, flying monkey stuff. And I went to Safe Haven, which is our domestic thing, for 11 years. And I've been in counseling for about 20 years, have C-PTSD as a result of tolerating it for so long. Long history of domestic violence. And he was sent to a 6-month program, but he didn't learn anything. And he and his brother have decided that they're not abusers. But
so you saw a counselor from the local domestic violence place?
That was for 11 years when they first told me that that's what was going on.
But there was a part of you that just wanted to shield him because he was, the breadwinner in the family, and you just didn't have a lot of power.
Before I understood statistics and stuff, I hoped that he would change and be a role model for our kids and things like that. But of course, that wasn't to be.
Okay. So, tell me more. Give me some words that describe your ex-husband during the marriage. Some words.
Rageaholic, alcohol issues, workaholic, associationaholic.
Tell me about associationaholic.
Well, you get in a lot of judicial associations, so he's traveling all the time, going to nice places and So I'm home, with the 5 kids, dealing with everything, getting overtired. One time it was 8 out of 11 days, he dropped in to get clean laundry and went again. It just, an inconsideration for me. I wasn't part of the voice of deciding anything. When the twins were a year old, he just decided, he took 1 year off to help. And then he just decided on his own he was going to go back and do his life as normal and travel and whatever. And when I said once, I would really like to travel, and that, he said, well, then you get a job and get an association and you can travel. I mean,
Okay.
that attitude.
Okay. Sunny Day says, what kind of father was your ex-husband?
Well, he liked to instill his adventure and travel with the kids. He read to them. He tried to get them to be mini-me. They all had to go to the Catholic church, and he wanted to play baseball and stuff, even if they didn't want to. He didn't really care about being on time to their events. It was more important to get the dishes done. But, he had nothing emotional. He was so emotionally unavailable. He had nothing to give to the kids as far as that. And, he was abusive to some of them more than others, especially the oldest. And,
physically abusive.
They have by witnessing all the abuse.
When
he would rage, a lot of times I would leave so that he would stop, so the kids wouldn't hear anymore. And we had safety plans around town for the kids. I'd stay overnight somewhere else or sleep on the floor in my kids' rooms or whatever. I only called the police once.
Was he physically abusive with your oldest?
Well, yes. There was one time they were at McDonald's and she wanted something, and it was Lenten. She didn't even know their little Catholic rules about, you got to eat meat. And she wanted the burgers that he was ordering for the younger 3 kids. And so he slammed her head with his hands on her throat. I wasn't willing. Head against the window, and was rolling up the window. And, she said, "What'd you do that for, Dad?" He said, "Well, your head was in the way. I was trying to roll up the window." I mean, always, lying and whatever. Yeah, and he's even put a bruise on one of my grandchildren when he was about 6 years old. So we were very cautious in ever letting him, be alone with grandchildren, but my other kids don't seem to think that's an issue.
Okay.
They let kids around them.
So Danjby says that he hid money and he barricaded you inside. They said it sounds like he had a fear of losing somebody. It was more that he wanted to control you, though, right?
Very, very much control. He wouldn't let me one day take the kids to school because I wouldn't give him the checkbook. But, and you think about these poor kids walking into school late, and the kids all go, "How come you're late?" Well, I think they're going to tell the truth. Go, "My dad was raging at my mom and, wouldn't let the door shut so she could drive us to school." I mean, just craziness.
Okay. So what finally led to the divorce, Sharon?
Well, actually, he divorced me.
He divorced you.
I was at a women's resource center trying to, get some skills, think about getting into the job force. And he left a message and he said, "We're getting a divorce." And I called and I said, "So you don't want to be the hero for the family and do, for your son, whatever?" And he said, "No." Of course, I'm sure he had women then, as he had. Well, there was some other women I found out about one time on Valentine's Day. His buzzer went off and he said this gal worked for Language Line, but he knew so much about her. He ended up traveling with her, went to London with her, and whatever. And when we talked about that in counseling, the counselor said, "You got to get rid of her." And on the way home, I was going to call her when I got home. He called her and gave her a heads up. And she said, "Yeah, I worked with a lot of judges. Never had a judge's wife be upset like you are." Anyway, he said that the counselor said he could continue the business relationship. That's not what he said. I finally had counselors do a written summary at the end of sessions because he heard what he wanted to hear.
Okay. Jilligan, welcome. Um, so uh, this is what the family tree is looking like. I'll show Sharon.
Okay.
So we're getting there. We're going to talk about your kids in just a moment. So be real specific. Like if I ask you a question, just sort of answer that question, because we need to sort of zip through this. You know, we don't have to. I know you wanted to change the names of your kids. We really don't need any names. We know their birth order.
Yeah, I'm just going to do one, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that. Okay. So how old is your oldest daughter?
39.
Tell me about how her life has sort of turned out.
Well, she has a college degree in criminal justice. Is making $13 an hour. She's been living with me for several years with her son, who's now almost 14, because she can't afford to live on her own. She's been abused by him so badly, and I've heard that she's emotionally like an 11-year-old, and she tends to rage a lot like her dad. Doesn't have very many friends. It's kind of sad how all of this has played out.
Yeah, it just occurs to me, Sharon, that we didn't do the disclaimer conversation. So
Okay.
Repeat after me. You know, this is not therapy.
I know this is not therapy.
I'm not your therapist.
Not your therapist.
This is a demonstration of the power of a genogram.
This is a demonstration of the power of a genogram.
You'll hold family tree unlabeled in any case.
We'll hold family tree.
Okay, you got that out of the way. Was your oldest daughter married or no?
She was married once for a short while to an abusive fellow.
Was he the father of her son?
No, she was a married man, and that's how she happened to have this little fella. And
you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just adjusting.
Okay. I didn't know if you had some feeling come up or. Okay, so the husband was abusive.
Yep.
Okay. Number 2 kid is a son. Tell me about your son.
He is 37. His undergraduate degree was in math, and his graduate degree from Indiana University is in data science. He works in computers right now. He has had bipolar since he was 14, very severe, been in the hospital a lot of times. At one point, the ex took him and his sister to the psychiatrist and got them off their medicine, which was awful. He does very well when he's on the medicine, and he's got a little girl, 5. He's divorced. He wasn't even married 2 years. And the bipolar had something to do with it, as well as
sure.
With an old boyfriend. So I'm sure what the kids grew up with and all the arguing and fighting had something to do with his divorce. So.
Someone had asked a little earlier if she grew up in a religious home, and she did say that she was raised pretty strict Catholic.
I do want to say that, I don't want to say anything against Catholics who, find this to be helpful for them. It was not
absolutely
helpful for me.
Absolutely.
I have some Catholic relatives that are just wonderful, but didn't work for me.
Danjby, we'll get to why she was attracted to a controlling man in just a second. She asked if your son was diagnosed with bipolar disorder as a teen or as an adult.
Yeah, about 14.
About 14.
When we look back, we kind of see some signs maybe at 12 or something.
Okay. Okay. Child number 3.
Well, number 3 is a girl. She's not working in the field that she went to college for. That was too stressful. She's doing something else, but can make a living. Just bought a house. She had a child when she was her last year of college, and she ended up placing the little guy who's now almost 12. And it's an open adoption, so I do get to see him on occasion, which is
You do.
And
interesting.
It's interesting, you know, blood is thicker than water, and the cousins act like they're good buddies, even though they don't see each other very often. So that's been an interesting ordeal. I thought I would never see him, and I was very distant from my daughter early on. In fact, I tried to adopt him, but legally I couldn't. Anyway, that all turned out well. She has bipolar and BPD and ADHD.
Sunny Day asks, did your kids ever beseech you to leave the marriage?
No. Now my oldest says, "Mom, you should have left a long time ago." You know.
But not as they were growing up.
No.
Okay. Betty says she's had her shower and now she's back. Gilligan is having pauses. Is anybody else having pauses? It seems to be working about right on this end, but let me know if anybody else is having any pauses. Daughter, kid number 3, has her bipolar put her in and out of hospitals?
Yes.
Okay, then you had twin girls. Tell me about the twins.
For the most part.
By the way, was that a surprise, or did you know that you had twins?
No, well, it was a surprise that I got pregnant, but we knew very early on because I had to have ultrasounds early because I C-section. So we knew right away.
Right.
We just were afraid that they were conjoined. But anyway, when they were 7 and 14 when they were born, and for the most part, they've been good buddies. But there was some time when there was a triangle with their daughter number 3 or child number 3. And there was a lot of favoritism from Bill's mom and family towards the number 4 twin because she was Catholic and the other one was non-denominational. So the one who was Catholic got gifts and, you know, whatever, got party, whatever, and the other one did not. And, you know, I spoke up to say that wasn't fair and stuff, but, you know, he wouldn't speak up. He didn't have boundaries in the right places.
Okay. So
they're very close today. They talk every day.
Number 4 is very close to WG, or the twins.
Yeah, not so much anymore. She was kind of a mini me when she was in high school. You know, reading at church. You know, memorizing the Bible, kind of thing.
So you were talking about the twins being close.
Oh yeah, twins are very close.
Okay, that happens with twins.
Very close.
How has number 4's life turned out? You said, you know, well, she was Dad's family's favorite, but how's her life turned out?
Yeah, she has a master's that she got in England. She was in the Peace Corps, met a nice fellow, ended up getting married in London, but he cheated on her. And so now she's divorced and she's 30. She's got a good job. starting over again. Hasn't had any children yet. My kids are very close to his relatives, which is a hard thing for me to
All of
handle.
your kids
But
are pretty much?
my well, except the one that lives here, is very close to his family, which is very hard to handle since they were such enablers.
Yeah. Kid number 5, I assume kid number 4 was born minutes before kid number 5.
1 minute.
1 minute.
A minute, yeah.
Wow. Okay,
And
tell me about her.
yeah, the second one always did things later than the first one for the most part, crawling or whatever. But anyway, both very smart. She has a good job, got married a year ago. Her dad was raging at her during the planning because he wanted to invite his girlfriend and some other relatives, and it was really ugly. But I'm pretty close to her, except for this new thing with the ex's fiance and all that kind of
The
stuff.
new thing with the ex's fiance.
Well, he just got engaged, and I am
He's
very
73
upset.
and he just got engaged?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's pretty hard to handle when you know he's a narcissist and an abuser. So obviously she's not seeing the truth. And he really has no business in relationships because he's just going to hurt people. And it's upsetting to see how loyal the kids are to her, buying her gifts, spending time with them. So I finally set a boundary where I don't go to family functions when he's there, especially because that stirs up the PTSD and the screaming at night and stuff like that. So.
There's a good question. Did you really want to have the twins? Were you apprehensive about bringing them into that situation?
No, but see, I was 34 at that time. I didn't even have an inkling about the abuse or anything till I was 42. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Of course, this was all familiar. It's what I grew up with. No, I actually wanted one more, but at the same time, I didn't want to bring them into the world, into our family. Counselors had said this is like a war zone, what the kids live in.
Okay, so those watching, was that something anybody else had experienced to where you didn't notice that you were in a relationship with a narcissist until later in the marriage?
No, it was after I was divorced, then they told me that it was a narcissist.
Okay.
It was a narcissist.
Okay. He had to go through some psychological evaluation or some such things?
No, she'd met him a couple times for some closure counseling and stuff, but just the things that I've said.
Okay. Okay. But I'm asking the people on the live chat, did anybody else go through a similar situation where you didn't realize what you were into until it was a bit late? Also, any final questions? We're just about ready to launch into the feedback for Sharon.
I don't think you mentioned the grandparents on my dad's side.
I really didn't. I just found out about the deli. Tell me about the grandparents on your dad's side.
But he had the store before my dad, hard worker, also Catholic and all that, but he had a kind heart. And I wondered if he got into some alcohol because I stayed up doing things. But the grandma was lived in an orphanage most of her life, and she seemed to have mental health issues, OCD, wanted to hoarder, newspapers and things, and she ended up with dementia, as did I think all of her siblings. So this dementia thing is very strong. She had a sister with some mental health issues. Oh, I forgot to say the ex was diagnosed with bipolar, maybe 3 or 4 years or so before we got divorced, but he wouldn't even finish the starter pack of the Lamictal.
Okay, so we've got some comments here. David said yes, he didn't notice things until late in the marriage. Annie says, same here. Her counselor alerted her that he hit about 7 of the 9 benchmarks for narcissism. Sunny Day says, I always knew something was wrong too, Sharon, and always assumed that it was just her codependency. And that was the issue. Later, she realized that she was married to a narcissist. The light bulbs finally came on. Here's an interesting question. Were there some warning signs in the early years of the marriage?
Well, the alcohol, he would get drunk a lot, drunk driving and whatnot.
The judge was out driving drunk.
Yep. Yeah, he wasn't too in tune emotionally, but I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like. We were both kind of following what our parents' marriages were like.
Right. Okay.
There were a few things, but anyway, go ahead.
Mrs. D says 23 years into the marriage before she understood her husband had borderline personality disorder. He had addictions to alcohol on and off throughout, but she didn't know about personality disorder. She did notice the year that she had her youngest child, but couldn't identify what was wrong. She just knew something was wrong. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and launch into Sharon's feedback session here. So, Sharon, before I start that, what do you hope to get out of any feedback? I mean, I can just tell you what I see, and I tell people that I try to comfort the disturbed and I try to disturb the comfortable. And with most people, there's some of both. So what do you hope to have addressed here if it's possible?
Well, I guess any feedback in dealing with this loyalty to their dad thing, but also, what other things you think that I need to work on? Obviously, I know there's abandonment wounds and that, but whatever else you dig up, happy to learn about.
So you're giving me permission to tell you what I see?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for saying that. Annie says hers was an alcohol abuser as well. They sort of try to self-medicate, in lieu of other things. Let me get a slurp of my cranberry juice and I'll be off to the races. I don't drink, I slurp. If you notice on this show, I always say slurp. Okay, so Sharon, the first thing I noticed about you is your voice. You have a very soft, sort of girlish voice. You're 65, but there's something very sweet and kind and sort of girlish about your voice. Has anybody ever told you that before?
No.
Nobody's ever told you that? Yeah, there's something little in your voice. Little and powerless.
Okay.
And have you read the book Codependent No More? Okay, so you've done some work on your codependency. What happens? I'll bounce back and forth from you in the show. What happens with the codependent is as they work on getting stronger, um, their voices actually change. There's a little more steel in their spine. There's a little more edge to the voice. There's a little more fire in the belly.
Okay.
And so I'm looking forward to hopefully having that happen, Sharon, with you. And I'm going to give you some direction, as to how to go about that. Um, the second thing was, you really grew up in an oppressive environment with your dad's paranoia combined with this serial killer who was on the loose for 2 years and your dad's fear of the Detroit riots. So there was this general feel of the universe isn't very safe. And you knew home wasn't really safe, but the world out there wasn't very safe either. I have mixed feelings about most domestic violence counselors. They tend to be people that have been through domestic violence themselves, and then they become counselors. And I've never met a domestic violence counselor that digs into the family of origin material and then helps. And I don't use the word victim because I don't actually believe that there are victims in marriage, but they empower the person who feels victimized. That really what marriage is just, it's really, oh, there's your kitty cat.
That's my grandson's kitty.
Oh, okay.
I have one too, but
I'm talking with Sharon, and a cat just sort of walked by her head. A beautiful cat. So you've probably heard me talk about this on various videos, that marriage is unfortunately, marriage is a reenactment of the wounds of your childhood.
Right.
And I wish there could have been another way for us to have an opportunity to heal and get healthy. What really breaks my heart, Sharon, about your story is the powerlessness of being a woman in your day and time, where you were living in your family system. Women were so powerless. And one of the most powerful people in any community generally is the judge. They rival the mayor. If they're not more powerful than the mayor, they're right there. And they can pull strings, and especially legally. And it's just, you've had a really sad story with growing up oppressed under your father's rage and criticism and fear. And then here you are on the ski slopes, minding your own business, trying to have a little bit of fun. And that's what Mother Nature does. Mother Nature sort of tricks us into working on our issues. So if you knew who the guy was on the ski slope, you'd have skied down the bunny hill real quick. You'd have been out of there. But because you were voiceless, because you were codependent, because you were abandoned, you were attracted to, WG.
Right.
And I've often said, if I roll into heaven, I'm going to demand a meeting with the big guy right away, which probably isn't going to impress anybody immediately at all. But and say, why does somebody like Sharon have to be so powerless and afraid all through her childhood, and then has to be powerless and afraid through most of her adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what the answer will be. The answer will be, if Mother Nature or God wanted to have a mechanism to help heal us, there's only one thing it could possibly be, and that's romantic love. It couldn't be counseling. It couldn't be religion. Romantic love was the only thing that almost everybody participates in, and then you have your who you're attracted to is calibrated by your wounds. So you've been you've really been voiceless, for most of your life, and that's one thing that stuck out. There's the kitty cat again. That's one thing that stuck out as the first thing you said is you want to get a voice. So that's my wish for you, is that you would get a voice. David says, "Well, Mark, I hope to do this justice, but you showed gender equality for what it should be." Okay, so uh, so one of my red flags, Sharon, for you is there is some victim mentality that you had. Every once in a while, you would do what I call triangle, where you would vent about, usually it was almost always a WG, where you would just sort of vent because you're hurt. He hurt you. And you would sort of tell a story on him, not so much reporting as much as getting it off your chest. And that's sort of, so your homework is to go to our YouTube channel, and I have a whole playlist on uprooting victim mentality. And there's probably 250, 300 videos on there where it makes the focus of the video getting out of victim mentality. And that's for a codependent. I mean, I hope you have at least 20 more years, and I hope they're the best 20 years of your life.
Thank you.
And you can be more individuated and self-actualized than you've ever been. It's almost like you've gone through life with your mouth muffled. It's like it's like your dad or your ex had a gag on your mouth. And that must have been just such a powerless, sad feeling. I think you have a lot more sadness than probably, what you showed tonight. Do you cry very much?
Not as much as I used to.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Betty says she felt the same way because she wasn't allowed to have a voice growing up. Another piece of homework, if you haven't done it, and everybody should do that, is read the book Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix.
Mm-hmm.
And have you read that?
I've read it, but I can read it again.
Read it again. And it's all about why you marry, who you marry, and how it's actually, most people who make these videos about narcissism sort of focus on educating about the narcissist and definitely sort of vilify the narcissist. But there's a reason, why we picked people with borderline personality or narcissism. And that's the only thing we had any chance at fixing and repairing. And so, of course, one of the patterns that I see in family trees is whenever we grow up with abandonment, the way you were abandoned emotionally by your father, who do we pick? We pick people who have affairs or who abandon your ex financially abused you, but financially abandoned you as well. So That's sad. Again, one of the most painful wounds there is abandonment, and we we get abandoned as a kid, and then as an adult, about the worst way possible is to have our spouse, be having affairs, and then we go through that again. So I really empathize with you about your kids having bipolar disorder. And, that isn't um, really about wounds in childhood. That's more biochemical, and, it's very genetic. In my family background, on my side of the family, about almost half the females for 4 generations have had bipolar disorder. Um, and now, there's, it's even, hitting, the male population on my side of the family a little bit, but there's been probably 5 or 6 in 4 generation that have had really bad bipolar disorder, and my middle child has been in and out of hospitals, and it's just the most, as you know, just the most heartbreaking thing. Good for your son that at least he's able to work, now, and he's not in the hospital. So it sounds like he's in a better place. But again, I can understand your powerlessness financially when you got kids with bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, ADD. You got 5 kids, and they need medical insurance, and they need lots and lots and lots of trips to the doctor. And it's like the woman's movement was beginning to happen in the 60s, but it didn't hit. You're part of Ann Arbor when you were growing up, and that's a very impacted by sort of the strong German background, the patriarchy, the males having all the power. So you said about your ex that he has no business being in relationships. He's just gonna hurt people, and uh, I mean, narcissistic people are going to do what narcissistic people do. There's no real rules, out there of shoulds and shouldn'ts. It's up to you. It's up to us to protect ourselves and to have, it's really about developing a sense of self. And that's what got snuffed out in you as a child and has continued to get snuffed out in you. And that's what I'm hoping for you that will grow in you, is the development of your sense of self. And then I'll direct you to Jerry Wise's videos on self-differentiation and the development of self. Jilligan says, I wonder why the narcissist picked you. Well, there's a reason. Jilligan, sign up for one of these family trees. We'll figure it out. And it is not unusual, as you heard from several people, to learn about, hey, there's a dark side to this dude that I didn't know existed. There were big red flags along the way, but you didn't feel loved enough growing up. You didn't feel special enough. You didn't feel entitled enough. You didn't feel like a princess. You felt, scared and muzzled. It was cool to get the 0 bar and the pop, but that's small consolation. And it probably added to, like you said, some eating disorder. And thank goodness that you got the bariatric surgery. Has that been a blessing for you?
Yes, although I've gained some weight back, which has been a struggle, but I've also joined the Binge Free Babes with Dr. Nina Savant.
What's it called? The Binge Free Babes?
Have
I
you heard
love
of
it.
it?
No.
It's a program. Well, she has a book. I think it's the Binge Free Cure or something. But anyway, once a week we meet by Facebook or no Zoom, and we have a Facebook group. We have homework to do and
Good for you.
working on a lot of the growing stuff, alongside counseling and stuff. It's been good.
Okay, if you got an eating disorder, ladies, you can join the Binge Free Babes with Sharon. And then the other strong pattern in the family system, it looks like on both your dad and your mother's side, was just all sorts of dementia.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your family was just racked with dementia, had several generations of family secrets, and then your kids just got slaughtered with, the bipolar stuff. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are, but usually out of five, I would say, maybe one would have bipolar. And you said what, two did?
At one time, four of them were on medication. Right now, there's three.
Okay, so there's three and one that at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So, so that's sort of what I see in your family system. I see you as um, a, a little girl who never got to really grow up and flex her muscles and become fierce. So that's also a wish that I have for you, that you would become formidable and strong and not afraid. Do you still feel fear?
I do.
I can sort of sense it in you, like when you wake up in the middle of the night, sort of a sense of fear of the other shoe's gonna drop kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have fear of going back to court and all that stuff.
Of course you do. Yeah, there's a form of PTSD that's caused by going back to court, and you had all the cards stacked against you. Annie says she has to dash. She says thank you to me and to you, Sharon, and have everybody have a good week. Steve says embrace your shadow, and I think by that he's saying embrace the fear.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that some of our recent videos have talked about is your relationship brings up the wounded inner child, but then eventually then you get an opportunity to then grow that inner child up and be more in your adult self. And so dig into the books again and the videos. And thank you for your courage in sharing your story with us. I wish everybody could see Sharon. There's just a softness and a sweetness in her face, but also a sadness. So that's my wish for you, is uh, some fire in your belly and a voice to be able to really be heard by whoever you need to be heard by. So, any reactions or thoughts about what I went over?
The only thing that surprises me was the voice thing. But I am a lifelong learner and probably will continue to work on my growth until I die, and feel that this is one legacy I can leave for my kids, because I can't leave them a lot of money. So I appreciate it. It's been great, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. a legacy of doing your own work and having that spill on your children is about as good a legacy as you can give. So thanks for watching, everybody. We're going to go ahead and wind down. Betty was saying something about your voice. What about her voice? Quickly before we sign off. She was saying, I thought her voice. David says, good night, everybody. Okay, Sharon, thanks a lot for joining us. What Betty said was she heard the fear in your voice.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I sort of sensed it, and Betty, picked up on it. So thanks for volunteering, and we'll see you online in a couple of weeks and chatting back and forth. God bless.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, folks. We didn't get into the whole eye of the tiger thing tonight. I wanted to sort of speed things along and just dive right into the family tree. We didn't have any technical glitches tonight, which was cool. Pass this on to people that don't know about family trees and the power of genograms and the power of seeing generational patterns, and the power of not having victim mentality and having a voice and taking hold of your life. Sunny Day says to Sharon, you're a beautiful person and thank you for sharing your story. David says, thank you, Mark. Steve says he's glad we solved the tech issues. The week that we had Larry on and we had the 5 different chopped up versions, we were operating with no internet and just using my hotspot on my phone because I was out of town. So that was a rough one. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. We have a fellow, I forget his first name, but I think it's maybe Marco. I'm not sure, but I think he's from Lithuania, and he's going to get up at 2:15 in the morning in Lithuania and have his family tree done. I wish I could remember his name. I apologize for that. It wasn't Marco, but Lithuanian guy up at 2:15. Thank you for watching tonight, and God bless. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.